She stood on my driveway with that smug smile, waving a bright orange paper in her hand. "You've been fined $50,000 for hoarding water," she said like she owned the whole valley. I looked at her calm, even though my fists wanted to clench. "Hoarding water?" I asked slowly. She pointed toward the dam I had built on my land years ago, the one that kept my cattle alive during dry months. "You're stealing from the community," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I almost laughed, but the weight of the fine written in bold letters hit me hard. They weren't joking. Behind her, a few board members were watching like vultures waiting for scraps. One of them muttered, "We'll take the dam down ourselves if he doesn't pay." I noticed a black SUV parked at the corner, HOA's hired muscle, fake security trying to look official. They thought I'd fold under pressure. They didn't know the land was legally mine, water rights and all, passed down from my grandfather. I kept my face straight. "You're standing on my property telling me what I can and can't do with water that belongs here," I said, steady and low. She smirked. "If you don't like it, you can leave. The HOA runs this valley now." Inside, my blood was boiling, but outside, I stayed calm, because she had no idea that the water she accused me of hoarding could wipe out every house they illegally built downstream, and all I had to do was pull one lever. "Careful what you wish for," I told her, walking back toward the dam. I could hear their footsteps following me as I walked toward the ridge. Karen's heels clicked on the gravel like she was marching into victory, but I knew she was blind to what was about to happen. "Stop right there," one of the fake security guys barked, hand resting on his belt like he had authority. I didn't stop. I just kept moving, slow and steady, until we stood where the dam stretched wide across the valley. Karen spread her arms out like she was giving a speech. "This dam is illegal. You've stolen what belongs to the community. You're done here." The HOA board clapped weakly like they were afraid of her but too proud to admit it. My jaw tightened. "Illegal? My grandfather built this dam with his own hands. We had papers, deeds, and water rights signed decades before any HOA even existed." I turned to face them. "You ever wonder why this land grows green when the rest of the county dries up? It's because of this dam. Without it, you'd have nothing but dust." Karen sneered. "Enough with the stories. You're going to pay that fine or lose everything." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then one of the men tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. "Touch me again," I warned, my voice like stone, "and you'll regret it." He froze, caught off guard by the way I said it. They didn't know I wasn't just some farmer clinging to land. They didn't know I had a background that taught me how to deal with people who pushed too far. Karen stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "What are you hiding?" she asked. I leaned in just enough for her to hear. "More than you can handle." And with that, I placed my hand on the old steel lever that held back millions of gallons of water. Her eyes widened when she saw my hand grip the lever. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her voice trembling for the first time. The board members behind her shuffled nervously, whispering, realizing this wasn't just a bluff. The fake security guy took a step back, scanning the dam as if he finally understood what was at stake. I looked down at the valley below, 35 shiny new homes all built on land that wasn't theirs. My land. They had cut down trees, bulldozed the fields, and poured concrete like they owned the place. And now they wanted to fine me for keeping the only thing that made the valley alive. I pulled my phone from my pocket, turned the screen toward Karen, and hit play. On it was video footage of her standing on this very ridge weeks ago, laughing as she signed off permits with no authority, selling plots that belonged to me. Her own voice rang out, "Who cares if it's his land? Once we build, he can't stop us." Her face went pale, the board members gasped. One even muttered, "You said you had legal approval." I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "This isn't about water, Karen, it's about greed. You built your empire on lies, and now—" I glanced at the lever, the steel groaning under my grip. "You're standing on borrowed time." The water roared behind the dam, the pressure rumbling like thunder. Karen lunged forward, screaming, "Don't you touch it!" But I didn't move yet. I wanted her to feel the weight of it, the truth pressing down harder than the flood she feared. $50,000, I said, shaking my head. "You're about to learn the real cost." The wind howled across the ridge, carrying the roar of the dam behind me. Karen's shriek echoed through the valley. "If you pull that, you'll destroy everything." I turned my head slowly toward her, my voice calm but sharp. "Everything you built on my land, not mine." One of the board members panicked. "He has the deeds, he has proof." But Karen spun on him like a snake, her voice breaking. "Shut up, he won't do it." She was desperate now, her mask slipping, the arrogance cracking into fear. I gave the lever the slightest tug and the iron screamed as if the earth itself groaned in warning. A thin stream of water hissed out, cutting through the dust below. The board gasped. Karen stumbled back. The fake security guard's hand went to his radio, but his voice shook when he said, "This is getting out of control." That's when I dropped the second bomb. I pulled another document from my jacket, thick, folded papers yellowed at the edges. These are the water rights signed in 1954, registered with the state. This dam, this land, this water, it's mine by law. You tried to find me for what I already own. Karen's jaw fell open. The board members looked at each other like sheep, realizing they'd been following a wolf. One whispered, "She lied to us." Karen snapped, her voice shrill. "Don't listen to him, he forged those papers." That's when headlights cut across the ridge. A county sheriff's truck pulled up, dust swirling in its wake. Two deputies stepped out, hands on their belts, eyes scanning the tense scent. The sheriff didn't move right away. He just stood there, boots planted firm in the gravel, eyes shifting from Karen's smug face to my hand still resting on the lever. "Arrest him!" Karen shouted again, her voice cracking like she was desperate to convince herself more than anyone else. I stayed calm. "Sheriff," I said, holding up the old papers, "this dam has been in my family for 70 years. State-registered water rights, full ownership of the valley. They fined me $50,000 for something I legally own." The sheriff took the documents, studied the seal, then raised his head toward Karen. "These look real." Yeah. Karen's smile faltered. "He forged them, he's a thief, he." I cut her off by pulling out my phone again, this time showing the sheriff the video of her giving out fake approvals and calling my land a gold mine the HOA could claim. The sound of her own laughter filled the air. The deputies froze. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Karen lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone, but one of the deputies caught her wrist midair. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you need to step back." Her composure cracked completely. "You don't understand," she screamed, flailing. "We control this valley, he's just a squatter with a dam." The sheriff turned to me. "You said they fined you." I nodded. 50,000, and when I wouldn't pay, they threatened to tear down the dam. He let out a slow whistle, then faced the HOA board. "You all better start explaining, because from where I'm standing looks like you built 35 houses on land that wasn't yours to sell." The board members' faces drained of color. One man whispered, "Oh God." Another staggered back, muttering, "We signed everything she gave us." Karen thrashed against the deputy's grip, shrieking, "Don't listen to him, he's bluffing, he won't dare drop it." I locked eyes with her, then without a word I shoved the lever down a notch. The dam roared like thunder and the ground shook beneath our feet as the first surge of water exploded forward. The valley below lit up with chaos the moment the water surged free. A wall of white foam tore down the slope, ripping through the edges of their manicured lawns and brand new fences. Alarms from the houses began to wail as water rushed into the streets, swallowing up driveways and sweeping patio furniture like toys. The board members screamed. Some ran toward their cars, but it was too late. The water was faster. Tires spun uselessly in the mud as engines sputtered and died. Karen's perfect hair whipped across her face, her shrill voice breaking into raw panic. "Stop it, you'll drown us all." I didn't move. I just watched the dam release what it had been holding for years, my voice low but steady. "That's not me, Karen, that's nature. You wanted to play God with this land, now you're learning who really owns it." The sheriff and his deputies kept their distance, wide-eyed as the water carved its way through the development. But they didn't stop me. They knew this wasn't a crime, it was justice. Karen tore free from the deputy's grip and rushed toward me, wild-eyed. "I'll sue you, I'll ruin you, this whole county will turn against you." I held up my phone again, the screen flashing red as a live stream ran on social media. Thousands of viewers were already tuned in, watching the HOA's illegal empire get swallowed by the flood. Comments were pouring in fast. "That's his land. Expose her. This is what happens when greed takes over." Karen froze when she saw the live counter climb higher and higher. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. The sheriff finally spoke, his tone cold. "Ma'am, you're finished. You lied, you forged, and you put every single family in danger." The board members turned on her instantly, shouting, "You told us it was legal. You promised we were protected." Their voices blended with the roar of the water as the flood chewed away at everything they'd stolen. I looked down at Karen, who had dropped to her knees in the mud, mascara running, still screaming that it wasn't fair. But all I said was, "Fair is finally catching up to you." Karen's screams were drowned out by the roar of water ripping through the valley. The houses, her empire, cracked and splintered like cardboard under a storm. The people she tricked were shouting at her now, pointing, some even shoving her as the sheriff's deputies tried to keep order. The sheriff held up my papers and shook his head. "This land, this water, this dam, it's all his. Every single house you built here is illegal." Karen's face twisted in rage, her voice a broken screech. "You can't do this to me, I own this valley." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "No, you stole it, and now the whole country's watching you lose it." I tilted my phone toward her. Over 100,000 viewers live, her lies exposed, her power collapsing in real time. The sheriff gave a nod and the deputy locked cuffs around her wrists. She fought, shrieking, spitting, but it didn't matter anymore. The board scattered like rats, some begging the sheriff for mercy, others trying to run from the flood creeping closer. As they dragged Karen past me, mud soaking her designer shoes, she spat, "You'll regret this, you'll regret it forever." I just stared at her calm. "I fought for this country so people like you couldn't take what isn't theirs. I don't regret a damn thing." The sheriff's truck headlights cut through the spray as they hauled her away. Behind us, the valley was returning to what it once was, a wild river carving its own path, erasing every trace of the HOA's greed. I stood there on the ridge, water mist cooling my face, and for the first time in years the land felt free again. And with the whole world watching, I let out one line they'd never forget. "This is my land, my water, and no HOA will ever change that." The water finally settled into a wide, raging river that cut straight through what used to be the HOA's pride and joy. The cul-de-sacs were gone, the white picket fences washed into splinters, and the street signs they had planted like flags of conquest were nothing but twisted metal sticking out of the mud. Nature had erased their empire in less than an hour. Karen sat in the back of the sheriff's truck, her hair plastered to her face, eyes wide like a caged animal. She wasn't screaming anymore, she just sat there stunned as if she couldn't process how quickly the tables had turned. The board members huddled together on higher ground, their suits ruined, their phones dead, their investments gone. The community they tried to build had drowned under the truth. The sheriff handed my papers back. "You were right all along. I'll file this with the county first thing in the morning. She won't see the light of day for a long time." His tone carried respect now, the kind you only give someone who stood their ground. I nodded, sliding the documents safely inside my jacket. All I ever wanted was to be left alone, my land, my water, my family. He gave me a firm look. "Well, you've got it, and the law on your side." I walked back toward the dam, the mist clinging to my skin, watching the valley reshape itself. The live feed was still running, comments exploding with words like hero, justice, patriot. People were rallying behind me, strangers who understood what it meant to fight for what was yours. Karen caught my eye through the window of the truck one last time. Her lips moved silently, but I didn't need to hear the words. They were the same ones all bullies say when they lose: "This isn't over." But it was for her. For me, it was only the beginning of reclaiming everything they tried to take. And as I stood on that ridge with the sun breaking through storm clouds, I whispered the truth that would echo far beyond the valley. Land can be stolen, power can be faked, but justice always finds its way.